What's up everyone, Joe Gray here today to talk about the Intek Strength Neutral Grip Bar. Now, I'm a big fan of an hourglass figure, but I had not previously taken a run at one in barbell form. So when Intek reached out to me and said they wanted to send me one of their new bars that had just such design, I was pretty excited. On that note, this bar came to me for free from Intek for the sake of this review. I do not have an affiliate link or any way that they are paying me or anything like that currently. If any of that ever changes, I'll note it below. But free bar for me to share my thoughts with all of you. I do have a discount code for Intek, which I'll leave below. But again, does not kick back anything to me in any way, shape, or form. Now, with hourglass figure barbells, Intek is certainly not the first ones to come up with this concept or design. Back in the day, there was a company called Reps Direct who made a really cool bar that had a lot of customization options and had this kind of similar hourglass neck head cutout space for it. I have a link for you to check that out in the description for a fellow YouTuber who owns one and has done a review on it for his home gym. You cannot buy that bar anymore, unfortunately, but I'm gonna link it down there for your edification purposes. And then for quite a while, the T-grip barbell was sold by American Barbell, but has also since been discontinued. So there are a ton of multi-grip barbell options that come in a lot of shapes, sizes, and different features, price ranges, all kinds of stuff on the market for your home gym. But if you're looking for this particular design, Intek is currently the only one I was able to find that offers it. So let's talk about this bar, why you might want to consider it, some of the special features that might not be obvious right out the gate, how it performs and my experience with it, so then that way you can decide if this is the right purchase for your home gym or not. If you aren't familiar with Intek, there's probably a good reason why. Their target market is traditionally sports teams. So high school gyms, college gyms, and even professional sports teams that have their own training facilities for football, basketball, baseball, whatever it might be, as opposed to the home gym. They make some of the finest bumpers, barbells, and dumbbells on the planet. Their Craft Series dumbbells are the holy grail for me in terms of dumbbells. At some point, I will own a pair, just not today. They are aesthetically incredible. They are made in the US, and the coup de grace piece is the self-leveling logo on the front. It is something that when I have showed people over the years, their immediate reaction is, that's something I didn't know I need, but now it is all I will ever think about again. But we're getting a little off track here because today we're not talking about any of that goodness. We're talking specifically about this bar here, the Intek Neutral Grip Bar, which is their multi-grip bar offering. This bar is made in the USA. It clocks in at 42 pounds and is 79.24 inches long, according to their site. So it is a bit shorter and lighter than a traditional power bar. It has standard Olympic-sized sleeves, so your normal collars will work. It has a 500-pound weight capacity. Typically, that would be a little low for a barbell, even if most of us aren't exceeding that anytime soon. But since this isn't something you're going to squat or deadlift with, but primarily do things like rows, bench, overhead press, all but the strongest athletes on the planet are not likely to approach or exceed that 500-pound mark. So it should be adequate enough. The bar is fully welded with a black powder coat finish. The bar has 2 neutral grip handles and a single close grip angled handle, which are all knurled. The knurling, like on most powder coated bars, is sufficient. It won't win any awards. It'll leave those looking for a bite left unsatisfied, but it is far from the smooth powder coat finishes we might be accustomed to with similarly finished bars. One of the original purposes behind the multi-grip barbell was that it would produce a more shoulder-friendly bench press. In recent years, the multi-grip bar kind of had a renaissance thanks to our friends at Kabuki Strength. They came out with the Cadillac bar. So the Cadillac bar has a multi-grip approach, similar multiple handles, but the key piece that differentiated the Cadillac from pretty much everything else on the market at the time was the camber. The camber in the bar gives us two features. One is an extended range of motion, much like the Duffalo bar or the Primal Armor Appalachian bar, which I recently reviewed. That extended range of motion, specifically in bench press, means that your arms travel further, and all things being equal, greater range of motion tends to lead to better hypertrophy. Multi-grip bars of the past would run into common issues of this teeter-totter effect. This teeter-totter effect led to wrist issues, elbow issues, and ultimately meant you could handle less weight on the bar. By having your hands be at a higher point on the bar than the weights themselves, you get increased stability in the bar. Intek reached out directly to their strength coaches that they work with, and they got feedback that while they liked the increased stability that came from these new generation cambered bars, they did not like the increased range of motion. The problem is that when you're talking about an athlete in particular, somebody like a pitcher or a lineman or maybe a volleyball player, somebody who, if they were to tear a pec, mess up a rotator cuff, something like that in the gym, which would sideline them or potentially even end their career, the cost-benefit analysis is just not worth it. So the task was to create a bar that had the improved stability aspects of the camber without the increased range of motion of the camber. And that's where this bar comes in. Now, looking at it right out the gate, you may not see how they achieved this. So let's take a closer look. Because Intek wasn't going to go with the camber to get the balancing effect, they went with instead these offset handles. So if we take a close look, you can see that the handles are actually raised a bit inside the hourglass body itself. This allows your hands to be ever so slightly above the weights themselves. This gives us the improved balancing effect of the cambered multi-grip bars without the extra range of motion. Okay, that is the overall design and concept of this bar, but let's talk about how it actually works and performs in the gym. The rings on the handles themselves are meant to function similarly to the rings on a traditional barbell. If we go too far one way versus too far the other way, that's going to give us a really bad effect. So not only do we need to be equal on the left and the right hand, but we need to find what center is in our hands so it balances correctly. This took me at least a couple of sets when I first loaded up the bar to try and find that balance. When I first used it, the first set, I had this kind of uh-oh feeling. I think they messed up. The second set, adjusted a bit and went, okay, we're getting a little bit better. By the time I got to my working sets, I went, all right, we're good. This balances well. This feels good in the hands. We're not teeter-tottering front to back, left to right, anything like that. So it will take a little bit of time to figure that out. But once you do, because again, it's marked, you know how to get back to that every single time for every single set. In my first use of this bar in overhead presses, it was an instant win. In fact, I used it and immediately texted my guy at Intek to tell him, dude, this is a joy to use for overhead press. However minor in the design it might be, it does translate to a much more stable feeling, natural movement pattern press that is just enjoyable in use. As intended, this bar is a very friendly shoulder and pec insertion bar for bench press. And if you need to take it another step further, Intek has this pad as an option. Now, I don't know if theirs still looks like this or if mine just does because I've had it for a while. But the intent is that this actually goes on the back right here. So you're benching, and now you've got this pad to reduce the range of motion even further. So if you have really beat up shoulders, or maybe you just want to train something like board presses with a bar like this, that's a pretty cool option. A couple of other wins for the Intek bar in general. One of the struggles with the Caddy was because the handles continue to go further up, or in the case of being on a bench, further away from you as you go inwards, it was difficult to have the bar fully loaded for maybe your heavy working sets at your normal grip, and then to move to close grip for some lighter work. You ended up having to adjust your monos or your J cups, something like that, to accommodate that, or really overreach to get in there. As opposed to on the Intek here, because we don't have that camber, we can jump between the three handles without having to adjust the J cups, monos, whatever you've got your bar set in. A cambered multi-bar also typically has issues sitting inside J cups, especially when unloaded. There are plenty of clips of the Caddy almost decapitating people. This does not have that same issue. This sits nice and clean in there because we don't have that kind of pendulum effect going on. Speaking of my Mutant Metals snapback rollers, if you read the Kabuki Cadillac review, you know that it was not very nice to my snapbacks. Because of the very aggressive powder coat and how wide that bar was, it did some pretty decent damage to my snapbacks in terms of the aesthetics and chip in the paint. This bar, because one, it does not have such an aggressive powder coat, and two, it has this taper, it's quite a bit friendlier. One thing that stands out as a difference between this and the Caddy specifically, as well as some of the others, is the handles. These chose neutral for the two main handles, as opposed to the Caddy choosing angled. And you may be sitting there thinking, well, which one's best? There's not really a best. This is a long debated discussion. Back when I first bought my Edge Fitness football bar, one of the discussions or ways that people came up with an answer as to which bar should you get, the angled football or the neutral Swiss bar, was that you should grab a pair of dumbbells and see where they naturally gravitate to. Are you angled? Are you neutral? Are you flared? If you're flared, maybe a multi-grip bar isn't really your jam. If you're angled, you grab the football bar. If you are neutral, you grab the Swiss. I don't know that that 100% works, but it's at least a decent way to think through a complicated question. Ultimately, in my experience, both have worked. The angled handles worked for years with my Edge bar and the Kabuki, and the neutral grip handles here work with the Intek bar. And with that, now we're going to talk about some of the things that I think aren't great on this bar. So this close grip angled handle, I never used it. It felt way too close for anything bench purposes. I could see you maybe using it for curls, but honestly, I'm just never using this bar for curls. I'm gonna grab my Easy Curl bar. So these two handles are really the only handles that I was using, which means that I only have two options, kind of the normal grip and the close grip. Taking another step further in terms of where this bar doesn't align with some of the bigger, badder choices on the market are the sleeves. So this bar is fully powder coated, including the sleeves. Now, as I mentioned, they do take normal Olympic sized collars, which is great, but most of the offerings you would see today have machine sleeves. Machine sleeves mimic the same type of sleeve you would see on a traditional barbell, which means that it should hold its color better, plates should slide on and off better. You don't end up with what you have here, which is the unfortunate, unsightly marks of the plates being dragged on and off. Now, this is purely aesthetic. This does not impact the bar's function or anything like that. But again, we are comparing this bar to the other ones on the market. The other ones definitely win in that category. Again, with the sleeves, we'll take a look at the end caps themselves. The end caps here, compared to the other ones on the market, are a rubber kind of stamp. Now, The nice thing here is that if you're using this bar in, say, a vertical bar storage, or maybe you plan to move it and drop it in some way, you no longer have to have any kind of rubber at the bottom. So you don't end up with metal on metal contact in a multi-bar storage solution. The downside is that it doesn't look as finished, as polished, as clean as a more traditional end cap does. Which takes me to ultimately probably the biggest negative of this bar, and that is the price. The Kabuki Caddy from Rogue right now is $495. The MG4C is going to land somewhere in the $500 range, depending on the amount of handles and different customization options you grab. The Rep Fitness Cambridge Swiss bar is about $290 with bells of steel, and some of the other kind of knockoff type bars landing at around $200. The Intek bar clocks in at a whopping $575. This makes this the most expensive bar by quite a bit. And considering how any of the bars that get even anywhere close, or even some of the bars that are about half of what this is, come in with the finished Olympic sleeves and end cap, this starts to look like potentially an overpriced bar in general. If you hit the right sale, you could snag the Longhorn and the multi-grip Swiss bar from Fringe Sport together for less than you'd pay for this one bar. So the pricing is really a tough piece to sell this bar when you compare it to everything else that's available on the market. Now, where I will leave you with on all of that to wrap us all up is I sold my Caddy and my Edge Fitness football bar to keep this bar as my go-to multi-grip bar. So with that is the Intek neutral grip barbell. In the comments below, let me know, do you own a multi-grip bar? Are you looking at a multi-grip bar? If so, what do you own or what are you looking at? Let me know, share your thoughts, your experiences, so that way other people can learn from that as well. And if you don't own a multi-grip bar and you don't want to buy one and you have no interest in one, what are you still doing here? I will have links in the description to all of the bars I talked about in this video, including this one. I will also have a link to the written review for this bar, so if you want to see some more details, pictures, those kinds of things, check that out. Additional links in the description will include my review pipeline, which is where you can see what I'm currently working on, what's coming next, and it allows you to vote on what I'm going to work on after that. If you like the video, hit that thumbs up. If you want to see more, hit that subscribe button, and I'll be back with more home gym awesomeness for all of you very soon. Peace.